There's something magical that happens when Black families gather around the dinner table on Sunday afternoon. Plates piled high with fried chicken and mac and cheese and greens, and someone says, "Remember when?" That's when the stories start flowing. The stories that get told and retold, embellished and refined over decades. The stories that connect generations and keep family history alive. And nobody told stories quite like Grandma, sitting at the head of the table, or more likely in her spot in the kitchen where she could keep an eye on everything. She had an endless supply of tales about her life, about Grandpa, about relatives long gone, about times so different from today they seem like fiction. If you were lucky enough to grow up with Sunday dinners at Grandma's house, you know these moments were about more than just food. They were about family, about legacy, about learning who you came from and what they survived. This is the first in a series of stories about those Sunday dinner conversations, about the wisdom and humor and history that our grandmothers shared when the family gathered, and the food was good and the stories flowed like sweet tea. Today's story is one that Grandma loved to tell, usually when Grandpa was sitting right there trying to act like he didn't remember, about the time she caught him trying to sneak out to go see his friends when he was supposed to be home taking care of the babies. Every time she told it, we'd laugh until our sides hurt, and Grandpa would smile, that little smile that meant she was telling the truth even if he wouldn't admit it. Before we get into Grandma's story, let me paint the picture for you. Sunday dinner at Grandma's house was an event, a weekly gathering that nothing short of serious illness or being out of town could excuse you from missing. By noon, the house would start filling up. Aunts and uncles, cousins, sometimes neighbors who had become like family, everyone bringing dishes to add to the feast Grandma had been preparing since Saturday night. The dining room table would be extended with extra leaves and covered with her good tablecloth, the one she only used for special occasions, even though Sunday dinner happened every week. And chairs would be set up in the living room for the overflow of people, because Grandma's house was never big enough to hold everyone comfortably, but somehow we all fit. The children would eat first, plates fixed by the adults and handed down with stern warnings not to spill anything on the good furniture. We'd eat fast, eager to be excused so we could go play in the backyard or watch TV in the den while the adults took their time with the meal. But as we got older, we learned that staying at the table after eating was when the real entertainment began. That's when the adults would settle in with their second helpings and their drinks. Sweet tea or lemonade for most, something stronger for a few, and the stories would start. Grandma was the undisputed champion storyteller. She had a way of building suspense, of acting out different parts with different voices, of knowing exactly when to pause for effect and when to deliver the punchline. She'd been telling these stories for so long that they were polished performances, refined over decades of repetition. But they never got old because she told them with such joy and energy, and because there was always some small detail that changed or some new commentary she'd add based on current events or whoever was sitting at the table. The story about catching Grandpa sneaking out was one of her favorites, and it usually came up when someone, usually one of the younger men in the family, was in trouble with their wife or girlfriend for something they did. Grandma would get that knowing look on her face, that little smile that meant she had wisdom to share, and she'd say, "Let me tell you about your grandfather." And we'd all settle in because we knew we were about to hear something good. "Now y'all know your grandfather," she'd begin, pointing her fork at Grandpa, who'd be sitting at the other end of the table trying to look innocent. "Y'all see him now, all quiet and respectable, going to church every Sunday, wouldn't hurt a fly. But let me tell you about who he was when we were young and I had 3 babies under 5 years old and he thought he could just slip out the house I wouldn't notice. She'd pause there, letting the anticipation build, looking around the table to make sure everyone was paying attention. The room would get quiet except for the sound of forks on plates and maybe a baby fussing somewhere in the background. This was back in 68 or 69, I can't remember exactly, but we were living in that little house on Harper Street, the one with the porch that was falling apart and the landlord who never fixed nothing unless you threatened to call the health department. Your grandfather was working at the Ford plant back then, doing the night shift, and I was home with the babies all day long. And I mean all day long. Your Aunt Linda was maybe 4, your Uncle James was 2, and your Aunt Sharon was just a baby, not even walking yet. You hear what I'm saying? 3 babies, one of them still in diapers, in a house with no air conditioning in the middle of summer. And I was by myself because your grandfather was sleeping during the day since he worked nights. The women at the table would nod knowingly, understanding the exhaustion she was describing, the special kind of tired that comes from caring for multiple small children without help. The men would look slightly uncomfortable, recognizing that this story was going to end with one of them looking bad. Now, on the weekends, Grandma would continue, your grandfather was supposed to be home, right? He worked Monday through Friday nights, so Saturday and Sunday, he was supposed to be there helping me with these children. But this particular Saturday, and I remember it was Saturday because I had just washed everybody's hair and the kitchen was still hot from heating up all that water on the stove, your grandfather got a phone call from one of his running buddies. She'd say running buddies with particular emphasis, making it clear what she thought about these friends who were always getting her husband into trouble. He talked to whoever it was for a few minutes, and I could tell something was up because he kept looking at me while he was talking, trying to see if I was paying attention. Then he hung up the phone and came into the kitchen where I was trying to get Sharon to eat her dinner, and he said real casual like, "Baby, I need to run to the store right quick. We need milk." Now we had just got milk 2 days before. I knew good and well we didn't need milk, but I'm stirring this pot of beans and I'm tired, so I just said, "Okay, don't be gone long." Grandpa would usually interject here, saying something like, "Now that's not exactly how it happened," but Grandma would wave him off with her hand, not even looking in his direction, and continue her story. So he gets dressed, and this should have been my first clue something was up, because who gets dressed up to go to the corner store? He put on his good pants and his nice shirt, and he splashed on some of that cologne that I liked, and I'm thinking, what kind of fool puts on cologne to buy milk? But I got 3 babies, and I'm exhausted, and my brain is not working right, so I just let him go. She'd pause here to take a sip of her drink, letting the suspense build, knowing everyone at the table was waiting to hear what happened next. About 5 minutes after he left, Linda came running into the kitchen crying because James had hit her with a toy or some such foolishness. I'm dealing with that, getting Sharon cleaned up from dinner, trying to get the dishes washed, and I realize it's been 30 minutes and your grandfather is not back yet. Now the store is literally right around the corner. You can walk there in 5 minutes. Even if there was a line, which there never was on Saturday evening, he should have been back in 15 minutes maximum. The women at the table would start making knowing sounds. And I know that's right, recognizing where this story was heading. So I got all 3 babies cleaned up and dressed, which took forever because you can't leave babies alone for 1 second, and trying to get 3 of them ready to go out was like herding cats. I put Sharon in the stroller, held James's hand, made Linda hold on to the stroller, and we walked down to that store. And guess what I found? She'd look around the table, making eye contact with different people, building the drama. Nothing. No car, no husband, no milk. The man at the store said he hadn't seen your grandfather all day, so now I'm standing outside this store with 3 babies. It's getting dark, and I know good and well your grandfather has lied to me and gone somewhere he had no business going. Grandpa would usually try to defend himself at this point, saying, "Now I told you I ran into..." But Grandma would just talk right over him, raising her voice slightly. So I walked those babies back home, put them to bed in the living room in the dark, waiting. And I waited. It got to be 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and still no sign of him. Now I'm not just mad anymore. I'm starting to get worried because what if something happened? But then I hear a car pull up outside around 11 o'clock, and I peek through the curtain, and there's your grandfather, getting dropped off by his no-good friend Willie. The way she said Willie's name made it clear that Willie was still on her list of troublemakers all these decades later, even though Willie had been dead for 20 years. I watched him through that window, and do you know what this man did? He stood outside on the sidewalk for a good 5 minutes looking at the house, trying to decide if the lights being off meant I was asleep or if I was waiting up for him. He knew he was in trouble. You could tell by the way he was moving, all slow and careful. Finally, he decided to chance it and started creeping up to the porch. And I mean creeping like he was trying to rob his own house, stepping over the squeaky board he knew would make noise, putting his key in the door real slow and quiet. By this point in the story, everyone at the table would be leaning forward, fully invested in the narrative, even though most of them had heard it multiple times. He opened that door so slow, he thought if he was quiet enough, he could just sneak past me and get in the bed and I'd never know. And just as he stepped inside, I reached over and turned on the lamp. Grandma would usually act this part out, reaching over like she was turning on a lamp, and the gesture alone would make people start laughing. Baby, when that light came on and he saw me sitting there in the chair with my arms crossed, I thought that man was going to have a heart attack right there in the doorway. His eyes got big as saucers, his mouth fell open, and he just froze. Couldn't move, couldn't speak, just stood there looking like he'd seen a ghost. Grandpa would be shaking his head at this point, smiling despite himself at the memory of getting caught. And you know what the first thing out of his mouth was? Not "I'm sorry," not "let me explain," but "baby, you still up?" Like it was a surprise that I would wait up for my husband who had been gone for 7 hours allegedly buying milk. The table would erupt in laughter at this, people slapping the table and wiping tears from their eyes because everyone could picture the scene so perfectly. I said, "Where is the milk?" And he just stood there like a deer in headlights. Then he tried to say, "Oh baby, they were out of milk at the store." Out of milk at the corner store that sells milk every single day. So I said, "Is that right?" Well, funny thing, I went to that store myself a few hours ago with all 3 of your children, and Mr. Johnson said he hadn't seen you all day. So where exactly were you that they ran out of milk? Grandma would deliver these lines with perfect timing, her voice getting higher and sharper with each question, and you could hear the decades-old anger still there under the humor. Come to find out, Willie had gotten tickets to see the Temptations perform at the State Theater, and they had invited your grandfather to go with them. The Temptations. This man left me home alone with 3 babies on a Saturday night to go see the Temptations, without even asking me if I wanted to go, without even telling me the truth about where he was going. The women at the table would make sounds of outrage and sympathy, while the men would wince because they knew the worst was yet to come. Now I love the Temptations as much as anybody, Grandma would say. But you don't lie to your wife and leave her with 3 babies to go to a concert. You just don't do that. So I stood up from that chair, and he backed up when I stood up because he knew. And I said to him, very calm, "You have 5 seconds to tell me exactly where you were and who you were with. And if you lie to me one more time, I promise you will regret it." She'd pause here for effect, and the room would be silent except for maybe someone suppressing a laugh. And to his credit, he told me the truth. Told me about the concert, about Willie and them getting the tickets last minute, about how he didn't think I'd let him go if he asked, so he just went. And you know what I did? Everyone would wait, knowing this was the moment the story had been building toward. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I didn't throw things. I just looked at him real calm and I said, "Okay, next Saturday I'm going out. I don't know where I'm going or what time I'll be back, but you'll be here with all 3 babies by yourself all day and all night. And when you call to ask where I am, I'll tell you I went to the store." And then I walked past him, went upstairs, and went to bed. The table would erupt again, people laughing and slapping the table and saying, "That's right, and you tell him, Grandma." And do you know, Grandma would continue, pointing at Grandpa again. The next Saturday came and I got dressed up in my best outfit, did my hair and my makeup, and I left that house at 10 in the morning and didn't come back until midnight. And when I got home, this man was sitting on the couch looking like he'd been through a war. All 3 babies were asleep, I'll give him that. He did get them to sleep. But the house was a disaster. There were dishes everywhere. The babies had on mismatched clothes, and he looked at me like I was the best thing he'd ever seen in his life. She'd soften a little bit here, and you could see the love underneath the story. He said, "I am so sorry. I will never do that again. I don't know how you do this every day. Please don't ever leave me alone with all 3 of them again." And you know what? He kept that promise. From that day on, if he wanted to go somewhere, he asked me first, and if I needed a break, he made sure I got it because he finally understood what I was dealing with every single day while he was at work. Grandpa would usually speak up at this point, saying something like, "She's right. I learned my lesson that day," and Grandma would give him a look that was part affection, part "you're damn right you did." "But here's the real lesson," Grandma would say, looking around the table at the younger couples. "And you young folks need to hear this. Marriage is about honesty and respect. Your grandfather thought he was being slick, but all he was doing was disrespecting me and the work I was doing at home with those babies. And I could have screamed and cried and made a big scene, but that wouldn't have taught him anything. What taught him was making him walk in my shoes for one day, making him see what I dealt with every day so he could understand why lying to me and leaving me alone was not okay." The mood at the table would shift here from laughter to something more thoughtful as people absorb the wisdom in the story. Y'all think marriage is about romance and being in love, and it is, but it's also about partnership and pulling your weight and being honest even when the truth is uncomfortable. Your grandfather wanted to see the Temptations, and you know what? If he had just asked me, I probably would have said yes. I could have asked my mama to watch the babies for a few hours, or he could have taken me with him and we could have made it a date. But he didn't give me that chance because he assumed I'd say no, so he lied. And that's what caused all the trouble. Not wanting to see a concert, but the lying and the disrespect. The younger people at the table would nod, getting the message, while the older folks who'd been married for decades would exchange knowing looks that said they'd learned these same lessons over the years. And let me tell you something else, Grandma would add, usually with a little smile. That concert he went to, the Temptations put on a great show. I heard all about it from other people who were there. But you know what your grandfather missed? That same night, after I got all the babies to sleep, I sat on the porch with a glass of wine and watched the stars and had the house quiet for the first time in weeks. It was peaceful and beautiful, and I got to just breathe for a little while. And when I took my Saturday the next week, I went to see my girlfriends, got my hair done, had lunch at a nice restaurant, and felt like a human being instead of just somebody's mama. So, in a way, his sneaking out gave me permission to take care of myself too, which I needed but felt guilty about. Sometimes blessings come in strange packages. This part of the story was newer, an addition she'd made in later years as she reflected on the memory with more perspective and less anger. It showed growth and wisdom, the understanding that even difficult moments in a marriage could lead to positive changes if both people were willing to learn from them. Your grandfather and I have been married 52 years now, she'd say, reaching out to take Grandpa's hand if he was sitting close enough, or gesturing toward him if he wasn't. 52 years of ups and downs, good times and hard times, moments when I wanted to throw him out and moments when I couldn't imagine life without him. But we made it because we learned to communicate, to respect each other, to understand that marriage is work and you have to keep working at it every single day. That night when I caught him sneaking in was a turning point for us. After that, we were more honest with each other. We talked about what we needed, what we wanted, what wasn't working, and we got better at being partners instead of just two people living in the same house. She'd squeeze Grandpa's hand and he'd squeeze back, and you could see in that small gesture the decades of love and struggle and commitment that had built their marriage. So when you young folks get mad at your spouse for something they did, remember this story. Remember that sometimes the best revenge is not yelling or crying or punishing them, but helping them understand what you go through, giving them perspective, teaching them through experience instead of words. And remember that every marriage has moments like this, times when somebody messes up or makes a bad choice, and the question is not whether those moments will happen, but how you'll handle them when they do. The story would usually end there, with Grandma taking a sip of her drink and looking satisfied with herself for imparting wisdom along with entertainment. The table would gradually come back to life as people started talking again, commenting on the story, sharing their own versions of similar situations, the younger folks teasing Grandpa about getting caught. But what made these Sunday dinner stories so special wasn't just the entertainment value or even the wisdom embedded in them. It was the way they connected generations, the way they kept family history alive, the way they taught lessons without lecturing, the way they made everyone feel part of something bigger than themselves. When Grandma told these stories, she was doing more than just reminiscing. She was binding the family together, creating shared experiences and memories, passing down values and history, making sure that the younger generations knew where they came from and what their people had been through. And the story about Grandpa sneaking out wasn't just about that one night in 1968 or whenever it was. It was about marriage and honesty and respect. It was about the exhaustion of young mothers and the obliviousness of young fathers. It was about learning to communicate and compromise. It was about forgiveness and growth. It was about the temptations and corner stores and 3 babies in a little house on Harper Street. It was about being black in Detroit in the late 1960s, about working at the Ford plant and raising children and trying to have a little fun despite the struggles. It was about all of this and more packed into a 15-minute story told over Sunday dinner. As we got older and started having our own families, we began to understand the stories differently. What seemed funny when we were kids revealed deeper layers of meaning as we faced similar challenges in our own relationships. The wisdom that Grandma had been trying to impart all along became clear when we were the ones dealing with babies and work and trying to maintain a marriage in the middle of all the chaos. And we found ourselves telling these same stories to our own children, keeping Grandma's memory alive and passing on the lessons she had taught us. This is why Sunday dinner at Grandma's was never just about the food, though the food was incredible. It was about these moments, these stories, this connection to family and history. It was about sitting at that table, overfed and happy, listening to Grandma hold court and teach us about life through the stories of her own. It was about learning that our grandparents were real people who made mistakes and learned from them, who struggled and survived, who built lives and families despite all the obstacles. It was about understanding that we were part of a chain that stretched back through generations, that we were the beneficiaries of all the wisdom and sacrifice of those who came before us, and that we had a responsibility to honor that legacy by living well and passing these stories on to the next generation. So this is the first of many stories from Grandma's Sunday dinner table. In the weeks to come, we'll share more stories about mischievous children and hard times survived, about first loves and last chances, about the Depression and the Great Migration, about church ladies and neighborhood characters, about all the moments and people and experiences that made up a Black woman's life in the 20th century. Each story is a gift, a piece of living history, a lesson wrapped in laughter and love, and each one reminds us of why gathering around the dinner table with family matters, why keeping these stories alive matters, why honoring our elders and learning from their experiences matters. Because when Grandma tells stories, she's not just entertaining us or passing the time. She's teaching us how to live, how to love, how to survive, how to be good partners and parents and people. She's giving us the tools we'll need to navigate our own lives and relationships. She's connecting us to our roots and our history. She's making sure we know who we are and where we came from. And that's worth more than all the fried chicken and mac and cheese in the world, though those certainly help make the medicine go down easier. What stories did your grandmother tell at Sunday dinner? Did your grandfather ever get caught sneaking out or doing something he shouldn't have? What lessons did your elders teach you through their stories? Drop a comment below and share your own family dinner memories. And make sure you subscribe because we have so many more of Grandma's stories to share in this series. Next week, we'll tell you about the time Grandma's mischievous brother nearly burned down the church. And trust me, you don't want to miss that one.